Good afternoon. I'm Richard Ingersoll at University of Pennsylvania. And as Kevin said, I've been doing research on teacher supply, demand, and quality issues really over the last 2.5 decades. And this afternoon, I'm going to briefly talk about what the data tell us about this big national crisis we have, teacher shortages, that we've heard so much about. The conventional wisdom is that we simply do not produce enough teachers in this country. Certainly not enough to keep up with student enrollment increases or teacher retirement increases, and that the outcome is that that many of our classrooms are not staffed with qualified teachers, particularly in our disadvantaged schools. The antidotes, the policy solution is straightforward. Let's bring thousands of more people into the teaching occupation, and we have dozens and dozens of interesting initiatives, federal, state, and local, designed to do that. The data tell us, however, unfortunately, that no matter how worthwhile these initiatives are, they will not solve the problem. The data tell us that the conventional wisdom is something of a wrong diagnosis and a wrong set of prescriptions. The data tell us that we don't have problems in the sense that we produce few teachers, teacher shortages. Rather, the data tell us that we lose too many teachers. We have a teacher turnover problem. And so hence, recruiting more teachers into the teaching occupation alone will not solve the problems. We also need to work on teacher retention. Teaching, elementary secondary teaching, is the largest occupation in the nation. There's over twice as many teachers as nurses, which is another large one. And teaching suffers from high turnover, high departures, higher than professors and lawyers and engineers and accountants, even higher than nurses. And I've tried to capture that in this slide. It takes the 2012 school year, and it shows this, that yellow arrow on the left tells us that about 1/3 teachers came into schools at the beginning of that school year. And then 10, 12 months later, notice it's a larger number, over 500,000, that orange dark yellow arrow, left teaching. These data tell us that almost 1 million teachers, over 1/4 of the nation's largest occupation, are in job transition, moving into, between, or out of schools each and every year. The scenario, or the label that we give to this type of scenario is the revolving door, a revolving door occupation. Now, there's no assumption that all the turnover, all the departures is bad by any means. We want some teachers to move on, and this is true for any occupation, any organization. You want some employee turnover. But there's a general consensus amongst people that study this that high levels of employee turnover are not cost-free. They're very expensive. And one of the consequences, one of the costs that I've identified in my own research is the so-called teacher shortages. Teaching is a high turnover occupation, and that's really the story behind these difficulties staffing our classrooms with qualified teachers. So why is turnover so high in teaching? Why do so many teachers depart their schools each and every year? These are the major reasons nationally. Interestingly enough, retirement is a relatively small piece. It's only about 1/5 of the high flows of teachers out of schools. And that's been a major focus, this idea that we have this teacher retirement crisis. School staffing actions, this is where teachers are laid off, schools are closed, school reorganizations, terminations, those types of things. Family or personal. I left my school because I wanted to raise children. I needed to care for elderly folks. I had health concerns. My spouse moved to another state. These are just part of life. The bottom 2 bars are the ones that interest me from a policy perspective. I left my school because I wanted to pursue another or better job or career. And finally, note the longest bar of all, over 50%, I left my school because I was dissatisfied. Why? What's the source of this dissatisfaction? Again, national data. These are the main reasons. Dissatisfied with accountability and testing. Dissatisfied with the leadership in the school, the way the school is run. dissatisfied because the teachers do not have enough voice, influence in the key decisions in the building that affect their jobs. And finally, a lack of autonomy and discretion in the classroom. So, in closing, what's the bottom line here? Everybody believes that we have this teacher shortage crisis and we're not able to ensure qualified teachers in every classroom. And so we have dozens of interesting initiatives all designed to recruit more people into teaching. There's nothing wrong with these. The data don't suggest there's anything wrong with these. But the data do say that these types of initiatives alone will not solve the problem. Teacher recruitment's not enough. We also have to have teacher retention to solve this problem. So what's the bottom line? If we can improve some of those working conditions, we could slow down the revolving door, we could shrink the so-called teacher shortage, and we could do a much better job of ensuring that every classroom is staffed with a qualified teacher. Thank you.